In this episode, we're going to talk about managing a ransomware incident in the way responders actually have to do it. Under time pressure, with incomplete information, and with business leaders asking for answers while systems may be failing. Beginners often expect incident response to feel like a clean checklist, but ransomware forces you to make choices, and choices always involve trade-offs. The three big ideas we will build are containment, recovery choices, and risk trade-offs, and you should hear them as a connected sequence. Containment is about stopping the spread and limiting damage right now. Recovery choices are about how you restore operations and data in a way that you can trust. Risk trade-offs are about choosing among imperfect options, such as speed versus certainty, restoring versus rebuilding, and operational continuity versus preserving evidence. This lesson is not about giving you a single correct answer, because ransomware incidents differ, but it is about giving you a way to think clearly so your decisions are structured rather than reactive. Containment is the first priority because ransomware can keep encrypting, keep spreading, and keep destroying recovery options while you debate what to do. Containment begins by recognizing that the environment is no longer trustworthy in the way it was 5 minutes ago, because the attacker may have administrative control and may have set up persistence. The immediate goal is to stop the active encryption process and stop the attacker from reaching additional systems. In practice, that often means isolating affected systems from the network, restricting lateral movement pathways, and disabling or limiting compromised identities. It also means protecting backups and recovery infrastructure, because attackers frequently target those next, and losing them increases pressure dramatically. At the same time, you have to be careful, because cutting connectivity can interrupt business and can also disrupt logging and monitoring that you need to understand scope. The containment mindset is controlled urgency. Stop the bleeding first, but do it in a way that preserves your ability to recover and to learn what happened. A key containment skill is to differentiate between what is already encrypted and what is at risk of being encrypted next, because that guides where you spend limited time. Encrypted systems may be effectively offline already, so isolating them can prevent spread but may not change their immediate usability. Systems that are still functioning but connected to infected networks may be at highest risk, especially shared file systems, identity services, and management servers that control many machines. If you suspect centralized identity is compromised, containment can include forcing reauthentication, revoking sessions, and temporarily limiting administrative actions, because a compromised admin account can quickly push ransomware widely. Another containment move is to stop or limit access to shared storage that ransomware is encrypting, because that can reduce further damage to shared data, even if it temporarily disrupts users. You are essentially trying to put doors between parts of the environment so the attacker cannot keep moving. Containment succeeds when encryption stops expanding and the attacker's ability to issue commands is reduced. Containment also includes preserving the possibility of an accurate scope assessment, because recovery decisions depend on knowing what is safe. Ransomware incidents can make people want to wipe everything immediately, but if you wipe too quickly, you may lose the ability to determine how the attacker got in and whether data was stolen. A disciplined responder captures critical information early, such as the timeline of when encryption began, which systems were affected first, and what accounts were used around that time. You also look for signs of data staging or exfiltration, because that changes the risk picture even if you can restore systems. This evidence does not have to be perfect to be useful. You are trying to preserve enough context to make better decisions. At the same time, you cannot let evidence collection delay stopping active harm. The best approach is to capture what you can quickly and then move to containment actions that stop spread, because every minute of active encryption increases damage. Once containment is underway, you face recovery choices, and these choices often determine the overall cost and duration of the incident. The first major recovery choice is restore versus rebuild. Restore means using backups or snapshots to return systems to a prior state, aiming for speed and continuity. Rebuild means creating clean systems from trusted baselines and reintroducing data carefully, aiming for higher confidence that hidden compromise is removed. Restore can be faster, but it carries the risk that you restore systems that still contain attacker persistence or configuration changes. Rebuild can be slower, but it can produce a cleaner environment and reduce the chance of reinfection, especially when attackers had time to establish deep control. Many real recoveries are hybrid, where you rebuild critical identity and management systems for high assurance, while restoring less critical systems from backups for speed. The key is that recovery is not just about making systems run. It is about making systems trustworthy again. Another recovery choice is what to prioritize first, because you cannot restore everything at once. Beginners sometimes assume the correct priority is to restore whatever was encrypted first, but a better approach is to restore what enables other restoration. Identity services, core networking, and management platforms often sit at the base of many dependencies, so rebuilding or restoring them first can unlock many other recoveries. Business-critical applications that generate revenue or deliver essential services also tend to be high priority, but they may depend on databases and storage that must be validated first. Communication systems matter too, because teams cannot coordinate recovery if they cannot communicate safely. You also consider whether certain systems are too risky to bring back quickly, such as systems that were clearly used by attackers for control or that show signs of data theft staging. Prioritization is a risk decision disguised as an operational decision, because every system you bring back is a potential place for an attacker to reappear if you have not cleaned the underlying compromise. Recovery choices are therefore about sequencing based on dependency and confidence. Now we get to risk trade-offs, because ransomware forces you to weigh speed, assurance, and business impact in ways that can feel uncomfortable. One trade-off is downtime versus safety, meaning how quickly you bring systems back versus how confident you are that they are clean. Bringing systems back quickly can reduce business loss, but it can also allow reinfection or allow attackers to continue operating if persistence remains. Another trade-off is evidence preservation versus rapid restoration, because some actions that speed recovery can reduce forensic clarity. A third trade-off is broad password resets and key rotations versus operational continuity, because aggressive identity resets can lock out legitimate operations but may be necessary if identity compromise is likely. A fourth trade-off involves isolation choices, such as cutting network segments, which can stop spread but also interrupt critical services. These trade-offs are not signs of failure. They are the reality of ransomware response. The skill is to make the trade-offs explicitly rather than letting them happen accidentally. One of the hardest risk trade-offs is deciding how to treat backups, because backups are both the best hope and a potential trap. If backups are clean, they can be the fastest way to restore data without paying. If backups were accessible to the attacker, they may be encrypted, deleted, or poisoned with malicious changes, meaning restoring from them could reintroduce compromise. This is why a key recovery step is validating backup integrity and understanding backup exposure. Validation can include checking whether backup systems show suspicious activity, whether backups cover the time window before compromise, and whether test restores behave normally. If backups are incomplete or untrustworthy, organizations may face longer rebuilding processes and more data loss, which increases pressure. Attackers know this and often target backups during privilege gain. The defender's goal is to regain an independent restoration path, because that is what reduces extortion leverage. Another major risk trade-off is the question of payment. But the most useful beginner view is not to debate it emotionally, but to understand what the decision depends on. Payment is not a technical fix. It is a business decision under duress, and it carries risks such as encouraging attackers, uncertainty about whether decryption will work, and uncertainty about whether stolen data will truly be deleted. The decision often depends on the organization's ability to recover without paying, the value and sensitivity of data, the duration of downtime the business can survive, and the legal and regulatory considerations. Even if payment is considered, containment and recovery planning still proceed, because relying entirely on an attacker's promise is not a recovery strategy. From an incident management perspective, the key point is that payment does not eliminate the need to remove attacker access and rebuild trust, because attackers may still have persistence. So the trade-off is not pay and everything is fine versus do not pay and everything is ruined. The real trade-off is between different kinds of risk and uncertainty. Understanding that helps you keep a clear head in the middle of emotionally charged discussions. Managing ransomware also requires thinking about the human dimension of recovery, because technical actions are only part of returning a business to functioning. Teams will be tired, communication will be strained, and people may be worried about blame. A good incident manager keeps the response structured, assigns clear ownership of decisions, and communicates in terms of what is known, what is being done, and what is needed from others. That clarity reduces panic-driven actions, like uncoordinated restorations that conflict with containment or rush changes that break systems. It also helps users understand what to expect, such as temporary loss of access, the need to re-authenticate, and the importance of reporting suspicious messages during the recovery window. Attackers often try to exploit confusion during recovery, for example, by sending phishing messages that pretend to be recovery instructions. So part of ransomware management is maintaining trust and discipline among people, not only among systems. If your people are coordinated, your technical response becomes more effective. To bring everything together, think of ransomware incident management as a loop that you repeat as you learn more. You contain to stop spread and protect recovery options, especially backups and identity systems. You make recovery choices about restore versus rebuild and about what to bring back first, guided by dependency and confidence. You openly acknowledge risk trade-offs, like speed versus assurance, and you make them deliberately rather than accidentally. You validate what you restore, because the goal is not just to turn systems back on, but to ensure they are not quietly compromised. You keep communication clear so technical and business decisions stay aligned, even under stress. When you handle ransomware this way, you reduce the attacker's leverage and increase your control over the timeline and outcomes. That is what it means to manage ransomware incidents with competence. Stop the damage, restore operations thoughtfully, and make risk trade-offs explicit and defensible.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.